guys, do you have time for a few quick questions? I see you're having a lot of fun, but do you ever stop and think if what you do is sustainable? And do you know what sustainable development means? Sustainable development is to make the world a better place for everyone now without destroying the possibilities for the next generations. If you wonder if something is sustainable, you can ask yourself, can we do this over and over again forever? Sustainable development means that we need to keep three things in mind at once: social progress, economic development, and climate and environment. First of all, we have to take care of our planet. We have many natural ecosystems that must be in balance in order for us to live here. The climate system is one of them. This system ensures that the temperature is correct and that the atmosphere emits exactly the right amount of solar energy. When we emit harmful greenhouse gases such as CO2, we clog the atmosphere. This changes the temperatures on Earth, which again affects our development. How we produce and use energy is incredibly important. Oil and coal are examples of energy we may run out of. Water, wind, and sun, however, will always be here. Using the lasting sources of energy that renew themselves is good for the planet and can provide jobs for years to come. Economics. Almost everything we develop, buy, and trade starts with nature. The smarter we use our natural resources and the better systems we create for a fair distribution, the more sustainable we are. One way to contribute to a more uneven distribution is to be more aware of what we buy and how it is produced. A football is a good example. It travels far before it reaches the football players. First, the materials are made. Then, they print the logo somewhere else before a third country sews it all together. One single football sees the whole world before it reaches its goal. This journey ties us together. If we are to win the battle for a sustainable future, we have to play with fair rules that applies to everyone. Social progress. We humans are part of nature, but we're also important resources for the world. Just like water, the forest, and the sun, we have minds that can create the strangest and most creative things. But for us to be the best versions of ourselves, there are certain things that must be in order, like having equal opportunities to education, safety, food, and medicine. This provides greater opportunities for us as human beings, but also for the planet. We just have to think in new ways. These three must work together. That is sustainable development. And there is actually a plan for this. All the countries of the United Nations have agreed on a joint plan for sustainable development. But for the plan to work, we need to cooperate, and we need you to be on board. Are you with us?
Sustainable development. How do we measure it? Can sustainability be measured? How would you approach its measurement? And what principles should be considered? These are the questions that we'll be looking at in this video. There's a belief that if you can't measure something, you won't know whether you've attained it. Is it possible to measure sustainability? For those of you who are really serious about this subject, I recommend the book by Bell and Morris called Sustainability Indicators. Another excellent resource is The Natural Step. In this video, we present some fundamental ideas about measuring sustainability, or measuring whether development is sustainable. The first comes from Herman Daly, a biologist. It derives from the principle that Earth is essentially a closed thermodynamic system, and focuses on the use of natural resources. It also recognizes that all of society resides within this environment and thus is subject to all the implications of being in a closed thermodynamic system. One implication of being in a closed thermodynamic system is that all material resources that we use must be regenerated from within the system. Another is that all wastes must be absorbed by the system. Within the daily rules for sustainability of natural resources, in order for the resources to be renewable, the rate at which they are consumed must be less than the rate at which they are regenerated. For non-renewable resources, such as radioactive uranium that is used for nuclear power, in order to reach a sustainable state, the rate at which the non-renewables are consumed must be less than the rate at which they are replaced by renewable substitutes. That is, looking at it from the other side, the rate of replacement by renewable substitutes has to be greater than the rate of consumption. And when considering pollutants, the rate at which they are emitted must be less than the rate at which they are detoxified and absorbed by natural systems. As you can see, these daily rules for sustainability of natural resources focuses on the preservation of the physical world. Donella Meadows conceived of sustainability indicators as metrics to help monitor the progression toward the ultimate end, sufficiency of well-being for all. Her framework came from the Herman Daly triangle of humanity's purpose. However, we have represented it here as a flower. In her conception, the ultimate ends are harmony, community, enlightenment, and self-respect. Ultimately, these would be sufficiently abundant for all. The ultimate means, depicted here as the roots, would be raw materials, solar energy, the biosphere, and biochemical cycles. This constitutes our ultimate natural capital. In between the ultimate means and ultimate ends are intermediate means and ends. These are the social, human, and built capital that convert resources to the ultimate ends. The intermediate means are labor, tools, and infrastructure. The intermediate ends are knowledge, wealth, and mobility. Meadows suggested that in order to monitor progress towards sustainable development, we would need at least 3 types of indicators. One is an indicator for the sufficiency of real human well-being. For many years, the gross domestic product of nations has been considered a proxy indicator for well-being of a nation. The GDP includes the market value of all goods and services produced within a nation over a year. However, there is no distinction between the spending, for example, to engage in war, for mitigating crime or disaster. GDP measures the quantity that is spent, but it doesn't measure anything about the quality. In this way, GDP has been criticized as a false indicator of well-being. Other indicators have recently been advocated to better account for real progress. These alternative indicators could possibly serve as indicators of real human well-being. Meadows suggested that the second indicator be an indicator of environmental integrity or sustainability of the environment. The third indicator suggested by Meadows was one that measured the ratio of sufficiency of well-being to environmental integrity, which could serve as an indicator of the efficiency of conversion of resources to well-being. You can imagine that these measures are neither simple nor universal. This image reminds us of the need to include multiple perspectives in the development of sustainability indicators because of the unique viewpoint of people within a social system. In the end, an important question to ask is, why use indicators? Can we actually achieve these measures in a complex system? One philosophy is that indicators exist to enable a community to come together to dialogue about what they value and how to move toward their valued state. So the importance is that developing the indicators builds community that is then able to intervene in their own destiny in ways that are grounded in their shared values. There's no single method to measure sustainability. Sustainability indicators should be holistic in nature, measuring sufficiency of well-being for all, sustainability of natural resources, and efficiency of converting resources to universal well-being. When considering natural systems, the principle is to use them at slower rates than the regeneration rates. Complex systems require multiple viewpoints to adequately express the needs of all in the system. While indicators help monitor change, their value may be in how the process of developing them builds community. In the next video, we'll look at systemic resilience as sustainability.
It took us a long time, thousands of years, before we kind of stumbled upon a phenomenon called growth. And this is in all continents, in all corners of the world, we are seeing growth.
Industry has a big job to do, tackling the challenge of, on the one hand, growth, on the other hand, growing responsibly when it comes to natural resources.
How do we keep growth and performance in a sustainable way, especially if we want emerging economies to join and rise in their own ways? Is there a role for private enterprise in this?
If you, as a company, have competencies and have a value chain that can address any of those issues, you should take them as an opportunity to innovate.
We basically decided to become a zero solid waste company by 2011. We'll become the first company in the region to become water neutral by 2012.
These companies have learned how to innovate in constrained environments. So they don't look at only at the resources they have, they look at how can we tackle constraints and use that to create innovation.
We have started generating power from the waste hot gases of cement plant, and by doing that we have become a carbon efficient power generating company.
We are CO2 positive. Through our forests we capture more CO2 than what our production and distribution generates.
Agriculture uses almost 70 to 80% of the freshwater resources. Now, our irrigation systems save almost 50% of that water. Imagine a world where if you can save 50% of agriculture, then you have enough water for everything else, industry, growth, urbanization.
The main purpose of our company is, of course, be profitable, but creating value both for the environment and for society. That's key.
For millions of small farmers, we are allowing them to use less of all the resources and produce far more. You can do growth, you can do development, and you can do that while still trying to create more prosperity for the people at the bottom of the pyramid.
With the same rigorosity that we have measured our economic indicators, we now do so the same thing with our environmental and social indicators.
These will be the enterprises that become the prototypical role models of the coming 1 or 2 decades.
It's giving us a new competitive edge in the global marketplace.
If we are able to convince more and more companies to embrace this philosophy, we will have a better world in which we can live.
There's an African proverb I learned which says, if you want to walk fast, walk alone. If you want to walk far, walk together.